was when Wanda was in that mirror dimension and the fractals, and then it got to mirrors and the spikes came out with they were like spike mirrors. And,
Yeah.
and they got extremely quiet. You couldn't hear anything except for like the sound effects. And I was like, man, that feels intense. Like I feel like she could cut herself at any moment on those mirrors. And then the coolest part was when she put her hand in the mirror and it turned to water, and then the sound of the
Oh,
water, the
it was
sound
just the sound of the water. Yeah.
that was so cool. I was like, that's so avant-garde. That's so creative. It's so out of the box. Like I hardly ever. That's something I would see in like a David Lynch movie, not a Marvel movie.
Welcome to the Out of the Box podcast, where Steele and I, Jose, your host, get to talk about out of the box ideas. Today, we're going to be talking about the movie that just came out, just blew our minds. It was risky. It was all over the place. But I think overall, like, it shows the capacity of what Marvel can do with Doctor Strange. And so before we actually get started, we want to invite you, if you have been a constant listener and you have really enjoyed our content, to really subscribe to our channel, really, because we're committed to continue providing amazing content for you guys and bringing in amazing guests like we have done in the past. And so we really would like for you to continue with our journey and by subscribing. And so without further ado, Steele, I know we haven't talked about this openly, but what did you, this is actually our first time talking about this, but what did you think of the Doctor Strange movie? Do you think it's a classic? Like, were they playing it safe or what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just a heads up for the audience, we're going to be talking spoilers in this video. So if you haven't seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, we recommend you watch it. At least I do. And so, yeah, just be prepared. Spoilers from here on out. So, yeah, my first thing on that is like, do I think it's a classic? That's a good question, actually. I don't know. I don't know. That's hard. That's hard. I have to think more on that. Maybe as we talk more, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll see.
So did it do things that were risky? Yes, I definitely think it took risks. As a matter of fact, I think it took more risks than most comic book movies have in a very long time.
Yeah.
The Batman took risks too, and so that one's up there pretty high for me too. So it's really rare when this happens, like movies like Logan, movies like the Dark Knight trilogy, those three movies. Though all of those movies take risks in the superhero genre. But I would even go as far as to say that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness had moments that were even almost more violent than the Dark Knight, which is saying something. I mean, because the Dark Knight is usually considered the closest to R-rated superhero movies out there. Not counting Logan, like not comparing to Logan, of course, but yeah, no, yeah, I definitely think it took risks.
Yeah, especially when that scene where Wanda is like so crazy and like she goes, she's already in that other universe. She just kills like the group of like 4 superheroes, like especially when that first guy with the fork on the head just dies. That was like where I was like, whoa.
Yeah, everyone
you just never see a superhero die like that. Like other than Infinity War, right? That was like crazy for us.
Yeah, like, the audience actually gasped when that happened, and it took me a second to register what happened. I actually didn't realize what happened at first. I was like, oh, what? You know, people are saying that's like the most violent part. Is it's like,
hey. It shows like that crazy, like devilish part of her. You know,
there's definitely a lot of religious overtones, I guess, in terms of like devil, like demons, and because I mean that is Sam Rami. Sam Rami is the director of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, as many people will know. Is Sam Rami, who also directed the original Spiderman Trilogy with Tobey Maguire, some of my favorite Spider-Man movies, and then he also directed Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and well, a lot of the Evil Dead stuff basically. And he also directed a lot of horror movies. So I think that's, to me, like, knowing that in the context of that, I'm like, oh yeah, I can definitely see all that, why all that's in there, all the kind of demonic type stuff. And some other people come at it like, oh, now Marvel's pushing devil stuff, and I'm like, that's a minority of people. I haven't heard too many people say that, but I'm like, no, it's a horror director, so like, what do you expect? You know, that's kind of, he's not trying to, you know.
And that horror director stuff really came out with Doctor Strange, doing like spells, but then he goes into witchcraft and like is doing, whenever he brings back that Doctor Strange from the other universe that was dead, and then uses the demons that were attacking him into like for his good, or like for himself. It was almost like what is going on? Like,
Yeah, it's like what?
At that point I was like, what just happened? Like what was this guy like on to create this like
Yeah, was he
like
taking drugs
stuff?
or something to go on a trip? Yeah, he
Yeah, I
definitely
know. It's just,
did a lot of
because I mean, you think about Doctor Strange as like the guy that's like going through time and like the multiverse and stuff, and or maybe like using the mirror stuff. And yeah, he used the mirror effect a little bit, but I don't know. There was just um I felt like it lost a little bit of the sense of like who Doctor Strange is, right? Especially how it starts off, like you're like, oh, how could he betray the girl, right?
Yeah, I was like,
Um,
oh, okay.
it's
Yeah.
cool how like it ends off like to like how it finishes. Like he doesn't do that, but it's just like I feel like I lost a little bit of a sense of like who Doctor Strange was, or maybe learned a little bit more. Like maybe I just had a
Oh
vague
yeah.
understanding,
There's
right?
there's no doubt that this is definitely a different, I would say a different take on Doctor Strange. And compared to the first, especially when you compare it to the first movie, because in the first movie there was so much Inception like visuals, the mirror dimension, and all that. So even in No Way Home, there was a little bit of the mirror dimension, and we saw like just one little tiny like few seconds of it in this one. And I think it's just the director, like the director's vision, and I think it's
That
just
is
a
true.
different take. And a lot of people want to compare it to the first movie and say the first movie is better and all this. And just me personally, the way I feel like I enjoyed and was more entertained by Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness than the first one. And I just watched the first one a few weeks ago to like, refresh myself. And I love the first one's visuals. I think it's awesome, all the psychedelic stuff. And it definitely, I think it has more trippy visuals in it and stuff. And it's really good. And that's great for that movie. And I'm able to compartmentalize that and say, that's this movie. And then here's Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness over here. And it's a different movie because
Yeah.
it's a different ride, it's a different story, I like that. I like change. I like to see something that I haven't seen before. And for me, I'm like, I don't want a repeat of the first one. You can still watch the first one and enjoy it for all that. And I'm okay with some of those elements not being in this one because I want to see something new. I want to see something
Mm.
different. And so yeah, I mean, but Doc Strange's character himself, that's another question.
Yeah, that's yeah, I that's it's interesting how like there was that complete contrast. It's almost like the dark side of Doctor Strange that like maybe we didn't know almost,
First scene.
like because it's almost like when like you meet someone, but then you find out their other side, like they're not as nice or they're not as good as you thought, or
Yeah.
maybe they just like have a deeper like just past or something. And I think that's what comes out in this Doctor Strange, especially the fact that other Doctor Strange come out in the different multiverses and they all happen to like resemble this like dark side of Doctor
Yeah,
Strange
that's
wanting
that, that's
more
true.
power, more things. And
There's
so
yeah, at least two Doctor Strange variants that were like dark.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that were dark. And it's
And we
like,
saw it in the main Doctor Strange too. We saw some darkness in him.
yeah.
And I think
And
that's the theme. That's what they were playing with the character.
yeah,
That's so
yeah,
Sam.
even when he goes into that haunted house or what looks like a mansion or his house in another multiverse, and he's walking up the steps, it's like screeching or like
Yeah.
squeaking, or not squeaking, but like yeah, it's almost like the wood is screeching, right? And it adds a level of horror. And at that point, I was like, whoa, what what kind of movie am I watching? Like, is
Yeah,
this
I'm
is this
not
a horror movie, or
yeah, I'm not watching a
or is
Marvel.
this a Marvel like
And they said
movie,
they were.
right?
They said they were making one. So
Yeah. Even like WandaVision, at some point when I was watching towards the end of WandaVision, I was like, hold up, like this is like witchcraft, like crazy
yeah, what's going
stuff going on here. Like what is going on? And I think they added that level to this this movie, and yeah, it was just so interesting.
So
But
yeah, one, and going back on your point about the Doctor Strange wrestling with the darkness, I really think that's, to me, that's better because it's more, it's deeper. It's not so surface level. It's like there's so many ways I could talk about it, but like that's Sam Raimi. Like that's what he does. If you look at, he makes horror movies, obviously, and even in his horror movies, like his recent ones, there's more depth to his characters and little nuances and things that make you care more about the characters. And I notice he really tries to do that. He tries to flesh that out compared to other directors. Not every director, but then Doctor Strange, there's this element of depth in him that you see there's a dark side and that theme of the other variants. But in the main one too, where he's like yelling at America Chavez and then he catches himself and realizes that, what he's doing, he's turning into the other Doctor Stranges. And then the element, the story about the sister dying that he couldn't save in the frozen lake, like that was so cool to add that depth, even though it wasn't very long and it could have been expanded on. It was cool that Sam Raimi tried to put that in there, or whoever did,
yeah,
right? But
yeah,
and then you go back to the original Spider-Man trilogy. So like you see him doing that there too with Spider-Man. Spider-Man wrestled with darkness in the first movie when he accidentally killed Uncle Ben's killer. He wrestled with darkness in Spider-Man 3, of course, with the symbiote suit and Venom and all that.
yeah,
His dark side came out and all that stuff.
yeah.
Spider-Man,
It's almost like
yeah,
he was embracing, his dark side in order to like conquer the bad in the world, right?
yeah, like Doctor Strange was, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Like I was thinking about this with Wanda and her character. She almost looked like some sort of like exorcist,
Yeah,
like something from the movie of Exorcist, like where she comes out
yeah,
like
true.
like popping back
Oh
into
yeah,
place and
that
stuff.
reminded me of the Pennywise, the clown from the It. That's what it reminded me of. Because
Just
there's
like I was like, what is going on? Like
so
at that
scary.
point I was like, this is another level.
Yeah,
This is something like, yeah, it was kind of creepy. Like when she comes out from the different reflections,
yeah, that was
right?
awesome.
And
Yeah,
then she comes out through one of them, and then she like pops back into place and
yeah.
stuff.
When she was doing that, I was like, that's a horror movie
Yeah,
trope and cliche. I don't care. I like it. This is cool. Give me more of that. Because it's a cliche, right, in horror movies, but this is a Marvel movie. This is a superhero comic movie. You don't expect that. So in that sense, it almost becomes anti-cliche, even though it is a cliche, if that makes sense. Because you
yeah.
don't expect that in a superhero movie, which is
And like I guess I wouldn't expect it in this movie because of what I've seen in Doctor Strange. Like for example, Morbius, I haven't seen it, but I'm thinking like, oh, that definitely has like a dark side. Like you can see it in the trailer. You could see like like it's gonna be dark, right?
yeah,
And but like it was so kind of like unexpected. It like because it was like you know threw me off a loop, right? Where I was like, whoa, like Wanda is like crazy and
yeah,
like she's like but it does show like how human emotions can go, to the extreme. I guess he was playing with the extremes of things,
yeah.
right? And it makes sense, like if he's that type of director where he needs to go to the extremes to create horror, then it makes sense why he did what he did.
Yeah, and it wasn't just
Um,
them, it was the writers too. Like they were building up to this for a while, and it's in the comic books too about Wanda becoming the Scarlet Witch, which is the more evil sided. But yeah,
yeah,
definitely. But Sam Raimi being the director makes perfect sense for that because he does pull out, like you said, those extremes.
yeah.
And
Man, I'm just thinking like, Stan Lee, like I don't know if he was the writer of all these like other
yeah, he
comics,
was
but
quite a few. Yeah,
man, like what was this guy like doing?
I
It
mean,
just
he
makes me
grew up
think
in
like if
the
this was a comic, I would just be like, what in the world? Like maybe with cartoons, maybe it's not gonna be as graphic.
oh yeah.
But I don't know, like
Well,
this was
I don't know
some
how. Yeah, I don't know how the comics all were, but yeah, the movie, yeah, the movie was intense, and there were people like complaining, saying it should be rated R and stuff. And I mean, it's definitely a strong PG-13, but when people say that, I always go back to, well, I think it's it's people who don't expect it to be that way because it's a Marvel movie, a Disney movie, and so
Yeah.
their expectations lead them to be thrown so off guard that they think, oh, this should be rated R. But then when you look at other movies that are PG-13 in other genres, like horror movie, there's plenty of PG-13 horror movies that do push it almost that far. Some, I don't know, farther, but I've seen some PG-13 horror movies and they push it pretty far. So, and then Indiana Jones: The Temple of Doom, the second movie was PG, I think, or PG-13, and it had showed a scene where this guy ripped out a heart from someone's chest. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. I think people are just kind of, they're just caught off guard, and they're, you know, and parents, I get that. I mean, parents expect Marvel movies and their kids, and I definitely get that. And then I always put
Yeah.
it like this: well, we have the internet, and it's amazing. We have technology. We can look up everything that could be in the movie that might be we worry about with our kids. We have that
That's
now,
true.
so I think
Yeah.
it's
I mean, and
responsibility of parents to make
one
sure.
of the things I guess like I've noticed that now that Marvel is part of Disney, like a lot of Disney movies are pushing sort of an agenda. I don't know if you noticed, but like for example, America Chavez, she had two mothers, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And of course, I mean, like a kid won't know, but seeing it as an adult, I'm like, man, like, and knowing what's going on with that type of agenda in movies, it just kind of like through a little like loop
Yeah,
there, and I was like,
yeah, yeah.
like it would
Said it.
it was a good movie. It's been a good movie so far, but then throwing that a little bit, just like man, like
Yeah, me personally, like
was it necessary?
I just
Yeah.
wish, I just don't want there to be politics in movies, period. Well, or at least I just don't want there to be politics in like maybe movies oriented towards kids or just, I don't want politics to be in every movie, I guess, It's kind of like
Yeah.
I want to get away from politics.
That's why I think that's why the Spider-Man did so well
Yeah,
because like now, maybe going a little bit out of this, but now they say Dumbledore, in the new movie is gay,
yeah, I
right?
heard about that because
And so like,
it's because J.K.
it's like
Rowling,
things like where it's like,
J.K.
why?
Rowling did that. She wrote that in, so it's like, yeah, it goes back to that, the writer.
And maybe it's like something newer that she came out with, but I'm just like, why add that? Like it's I mean, it's nothing against like no one, but it's just like, you know, they're using something that's so mainstream to like add political like statements, where it's just like,
Yeah, it's bothersome how we want to watch a movie to be entertained. We're trying to get away from reality, and we're trying to just, and we don't want, and also when it's done in ways that, I don't know, where it feels
they're
forced,
so
where it
obvious.
feels like it's
It's so
forced,
obvious and so unnecessary.
or it doesn't flow naturally with the story and that
Yeah.
kind of
That
stuff.
I think that's why the Eternals did so badly, because it was just like one after the other. Like there was a kid that was like agender, no gender at all. Then there was like a gay couple, and like just like one thing after the other, where I was just like, I don't know. Like I have nothing against, you know, the opposite sex, but like it's just not showing it in like what would be considered kids or potentially kids movies, like superhero movies. Like these are like superheroes have always been like more for like children, and like
Yeah,
to
and
show them like the impossible. And
you usually don't see PG-13 superhero movies with any, sexual scenes. There's no sexuality in superhero movies since they've been out, really, and it, or at least it's kept to a minimal, or it's so subtle that you wouldn't even ever pick up on it. Because they are. I mean, superhero movies have been designed for a long time to be oriented towards kids, and it's fine to have rated R superhero movies. I think that's cool, but why try to put that into movies kids are more likely to watch? Why
exactly.
bring any kind of sexuality at all, whatever it is, like on
Yeah.
side. So that's just my argument. I think superhero movies are just a certain type of genre where it's maybe not necessary. I don't know. And
Yeah.
there's so many other things to focus on with these movies. But there's also been some that's been one criticism of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. there's also been some criticism of just the movie being like messy, like having a messy plot or not having a strong enough story. And I admit it, I'm the kind of person where like I often fall for style over substance. I often find myself loving a movie more for its style than its story. And I freely
Yeah.
admit that. I can't help it. I'm a filmmaker, I'm an artist, polymath, all that stuff. And I love creative stuff. I love filmmakers who push the boundaries. I love movies that are avant-garde. I love art house movies. I like it when movies do things that are different. So whenever I see something like Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, where they're doing horror that's never really been done in a superhero movie, they're doing like cinematography. So because Sam Rami is so creative with his cinematography and his sound design, which we need to talk about this.
Yeah, the sounds. Yeah.
So like all of that, I get so caught up in that I'm like, this is a great movie. I love this. This is so cool. And then I don't really pay attention to like the problems with the plot or like the story. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, what's your take?
I feel like maybe there was like a little bit of like some loose ends. I would say that it was just some things that I've, because the movie in itself was a little bit long in itself, but just like the connections between one place to the other, I think like meeting the villain was like a little bit weird. I know Wanda is supposed to be the Scarlet Witch, but just how it was, how she became like angry and like almost to the point of insanity felt very abrupt. Like it didn't build up that much. Like yeah, like she would see her kids and maybe she was like time traveling through the universe to find where she had kids and stuff, but then it was just like, I mean, I don't, I mean, I guess I can't talk if I don't have the solution, but just felt very abrupt.
Yeah, people have
Going from A to Z of the character. Um, I mean, I know who she is from WandaVision and all that,
and that's the thing,
but
you know, WandaVision.
yeah, it was kind of like super fast and it just
I think,
like
yeah,
didn't click for me. And then I really like how they brought up the idea of like time, the watch and the girl, right? For Doctor
that
Strange, and
was
she
all
was
really
getting
well done.
married
Yeah,
and
that
all
was
this. It was kind of like a super Spider-Man moment,
that.
right? Where
Yeah,
like
I was gonna bring that up. All of the stuff with Christine Palmer's character in Doctor Strange reminded me so much of the original Spider-Man trilogy with Mary Jane and Peter about the conflict and like the deeper emotional part of it. Like even I don't know about you, but the whole wedding scene, I felt like I was watching a scene from Spider-Man 2. Like
yes,
the way
yeah,
it was shot, the music, the way it was filmed, the dialogue,
completely.
the acting, the way they talk to each other. I was like, this feels like people having a real conversation. I'm like, that's what I've been wanting. I've been
Yeah.
wanting these superhero movies to feel genuine, like Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
And so,
and
yeah,
when he was walking in the street, he wants to feel normal, and then people are like, "Hey, Doctor Strange," or
yeah,
they're telling him stuff, and yeah, I felt like I was watching Spider-Man. Like some scenes were like Spider-Man for
Did
sure.
on that note, did that first action scene with the eyeball monster, did that remind you of Spider-Man 2? It definitely did for me.
Yeah, I
The
mean, now that I
Doctor,
think about it, maybe,
it was like
because it's
yeah,
yeah,
Dr. Octopus. Remember when Dr. Octopus was climbing that building and Aunt May was like caught up there and all this? That's what reminded me of that whole scene.
mm,
Because
mm,
America Chavez got stuck on the ledge of the building, and then all another thing was happening over here, and then that it just screams Spider-Man 2 to
yeah, yeah,
me.
yeah. It's kind of crazy how they use the same kind of story plot to create that scene.
Yeah, that was
I
cool.
did notice that. Yeah, it
That's,
was it was interesting.
is there anything else like in the story wise that you were thinking about?
Like the fact that he was chasing that book right at the beginning, and he
Yeah,
was trying to get to that book of stories, and I think Wanda just burned it,
in the beginning.
right? Like you did, how not the witchcraft book,
Uh,
the book that was like in his dream when he like saw that girl. Well, Wanda burned that book, and so I was like, well, what was the matter of like having that book there?
oh wait,
You
so she
remember that blue book that was like
Yeah, I remember
out in the abyss of like nothingness and stuff.
She took the book from that place, right? And then she used it, or
No, she used. I think she found it in her universe because that book, the witchcraft book,
yeah.
exists in every universe.
Yeah, that was a different book though, wasn't it? Than the
Yeah, it was a different book. It was a blue book, right? That had like good spells, or I don't know what it.
yeah, it was the good book, but and then Wanda, I think she had the Darkhold book.
She had the Darkhold book, and so she burned the other one. And I was like,
she
well,
burned.
what?
Wait, which book did she burn?
The blue one, yeah,
The good one.
the good one,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
And so I was like, what's the matter with having that book in the first place? Then,
Yeah, why was
you
it?
know, why was it there? Like, if
Like
Doctor Strange wasn't even able to use it, maybe like little things like that.
Yeah,
But I did think, like it was so interesting when I first saw that where he was dreaming and then he sees like Doctor Strange like take the girl's power and then he gets killed. I was like, whoa,
I didn't
whoa,
expect that at all.
I didn't expect it. It was very unexpected. But
that was a good catcher.
another thing, I felt like America Chavez didn't have she didn't have really good acting, honestly.
Oh, really? It's funny. Other people are saying the opposite, but I think
I just felt it was very like
I'm in the middle.
very like
yeah.
very Netflix kind of style, like
Yeah.
very like just it's not anything where like a kid, like that's actually like running. She's just like, I don't know how to control my powers, and I just
You
felt
feel like it could have been a little bit more powerful, like performance.
more powerful, exactly. Like because it didn't in that moment when she like punched Wanda, it didn't build up to the point where I was like, whoa,
That's true.
whoa, like Doctor Strange just gave her the go to trust in her.
Yeah, that's an example of it being rushed. That's a perfect example of the time when it could have slowed down a little bit. Because that's another common complaint I think that you kind of shared earlier too, that sometimes the movie feels rushed. That's what a lot of people have been saying. Like some parts feel like they happen too quickly. Like when Wanda was attacking the first time, that it just all happened within a few seconds.
Yeah, yeah. When she was like hitting the tower, right?
Yeah, people were
and then people are like protecting it, and then she just like slightly like changes somebody's mind, and they stop, and everything breaks, and she comes in. It was like
I was okay with that because I didn't. That part was the most boring part to me. Like when she was first attacking, I was like, all right, let's. I don't want to see a whole long battle. Can we just move through it? I want to see Wanda do weird stuff, not do a war battle scene. So I was kind of, for me, it didn't bother me because I wanted that part to go faster. Yeah, but I could see how like America Chavez punching her and stuff like that could have been built up more because it kind of just happened really fast.
Yeah.
They said that they cut like 40 minutes out of this movie.
Wow. Well, yeah, yeah, definitely. The character America Chavez, I'm not too sure like what to call it, but I feel like that character could have been developed a little bit more.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, she could have, and
like, why could she travel multiverses? Like, you know how there's always that story behind the the superhero?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
What made her become like traveler of multiverses? Like, did she fall somewhere? Did she do something? Does she come from a universe? Does she, like, what made her?
Yeah, that's true, and that's what we expect. Like even from Sam Rami, because the original Spider-Man trilogy, we got like an origin story for every villain and every new character.
Yeah.
That's how superhero movies used to be back in the day. But now, like with the Disney and Marvel, like they've been introducing new characters without any origins at all. Like Falcon. I'm sure there's several other characters. Like even Guardians of the Galaxy, they didn't go into the backstory of every character. So like that's more common now, and I think it's more of like the norm. So
unless they're preparing like that for another movie, like they're gonna develop America Chavez for another movie. I think it's so funny that how they named her. I mean, like I know it's like now diversity and stuff like like the Hispanic like influence, I guess, in Marvel. But it's America Chavez. I don't know. It's so interesting.
Yeah,
The name that they chose.
yeah, and she's a new character from like the last, I don't know, since like I don't know, I don't keep up, so people are gonna say I'm wrong, but I'm just saying maybe since like 2001. I don't know. I'm just guessing. So
She's a character. Like she came out in another
in the
movie.
comic books. Yeah, she's in the comic
Oh,
book.
in the
I don't know.
comics.
She's like a very recent character, so I don't know. I have no idea when she was created. I just know it's within this new age of what I mean.
Yeah.
So
So Stan Lee created her.
I don't know
Like
if Stanley did or not. Actually, it might have been the new Marvel Comics team since it was so recent. But I have to admit, though, like without hearing anyone else's opinions, my first impressions of America Chavez were like I kind of bought into her character. Actually, I kind of bought into this. That she was scared. I was like, okay, that makes sense. She literally, Doctor Strange was literally trying to kill her, and then she almost died. So I was like, okay, it makes sense that she's scared. Doctor Strange. That's actually kind of interesting. It's like I've never really seen that before, where like someone's afraid of the hero. Throughout the movie, I thought that part to me was interesting. And then I
yeah,
thought,
that's true.
even though like we're talking about I don't want politics in movies anymore and stuff like that. Um, I thought the parents' death was a good it was a good plot device to make me care about her character. Maybe I don't like want the politic part of it, but I have to admit that did make me care about her more. And I was like, okay, they're trying to add depth, and you know,
Yeah.
and it could have been fleshed out more. Like it definitely could have had more breathing room and
Yeah.
more like dialogue scenes. There's so much go go go. So
Yeah. It's like one after the other. Like, a scene where America and Doctor Strange, like you said, have a dialogue. Like they share more about their story. And I know they kind of shared a little bit when they stood on that bubble and they told them a little bit more about their life, you know, like a deep story of themselves. Remember that scene where they were in that universe where they stood in front of like a circle and then they'll tell them
yeah,
like their a memory, right? A memory. And I thought that was interesting, right? Because I was trying to figure out like how are they gonna share something about themselves that's deeper. And I think that was the moment where the crew tried to like add some depth
yeah,
to the character,
definitely
like
agree.
some sort of realness, because as the audience we have to be able to connect to them in
That's
some
that's
sort of
what's
way. Or
that's what's missing. That's what's missing in a lot of superhero movies these days. As a matter of fact, some superhero movies, because I rewatched a lot of the Marvel movies over, and my impression is there could have been more, maybe character scenes, more drama scenes like that make me care about the characters. Because that to me is what stood out a lot with this movie. I rewatched a ton of the Marvel Studios movies like within the past month. As we talked about in that podcast about Marvel movies, so guys check that out. Um, and I found that yeah, I enjoyed. I thought they were cool. There's some cool stuff, and they're not as bad as I remembered. Maybe I learned to appreciate them for in a different way for different reasons, and not be so critical of them like I used to be. But I have to admit, I didn't feel that attached to the characters. There were even times where I was like almost bored, which is weird when you're talking about blockbuster movies. I almost because I felt so disconnected from the characters because there weren't enough scenes of drama that I felt bored and I didn't feel attached to that and I didn't feel invested in the story. And so I was just like watching it to watch it, to see cool stuff, but I didn't feel invested. And so I
Yeah,
think in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness and the original Spider-Man trilogy, what Sam Raimi does, what I think Sam Raimi maybe played a role in, I don't know for sure, is trying to add more drama, trying to add fleshing out the characters more deeper moments. Like we like the whole wedding sequence that reminded of Spider-Man 2. To me, that's Sam Raimi. Like he does that. He tries to have those deeper moments. And I think the studio interference possibly, I don't know for sure, or because it wasn't written by Sam Raimi, so I think that plays a role in why he didn't have as many of those moments, because he doesn't have like 100% control, I don't think, compared to like the Spider-Man trilogy where maybe he did have more. I don't know. Like,
yeah. When it was first coming out, he just had more freedom to change things, move around things.
yeah, and it's a
Yeah,
different.
that's true. Yeah, it's you're playing with the politics of the studio, right? The Marvel studio, and gotta navigate and find middle grounds and stuff like that. And sometimes through those like conversations, a lot of the maybe great ideas get lost in the way to try to like find agreements, like halfway points.
Yeah, definitely. And I also wanted to mention the sound design. Did you notice how the sound effects and the way the music was done was different?
Yeah, I mean, I did notice a little bit. I did notice a little bit, just like in the sense of like suspense that it added to the back. I didn't pay too much attention like to the music.
Oh yeah,
But other than the fact that it just sounded more horrific, like just
tense maybe. Because
yeah,
you notice how, like in a lot of Marvel movies, I haven't noticed this because yeah, no, because I can't really think of too many moments like that in the Marvel Studios movies, how they usually are. But did you notice how in certain scenes it got really quiet, like all of a sudden?
yeah.
All of a sudden it just there's no music, it just focused on the sound effects. Like the best example that really stood out to me was when Wanda was in that mirror dimension and the fractals, and then it got to mirrors and the spikes came out with they were like spike mirrors. And
Yeah.
and they got extremely quiet. You couldn't hear anything except for like the sound effects. And I was like, man, that feels intense. Like I feel like she could cut herself at any moment on those mirrors. And then the coolest part was when
Mm.
she put her hand in the mirror and it turned to water. And then the sound of the
Oh,
water, the
it was
sound
just the sound of the water. Yeah.
that was so cool. I was like, that's so avant-garde. That's so created, so out of the box. Like I hardly ever that's something I was seeing like a David Lynch movie, not a Marvel movie, you know. So I thought that was so cool.
Mm.
And there's several moments of that throughout the movie, and I was like, wow, that's Sam Raimi's style. And when I think back to the Spider-Man movies, I was like, yeah, I could see that in there too. Because there were moments where Spider-Man had the spider sense, and then there was no music, and it just got quiet, like the train, and then like fast forwarded to the end of the train track, and so like, yeah, that's
Mm.
Sam Raimi's style. Like that's so cool to see a director have his vision.
Yeah. Wow. I hadn't paid too much attention, but now that you put it into focus, I think that it does make some sense. And that moment where she passes through the water, it makes me think of that movie, Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer,
Oh,
where he connects to that
the border.
surfboard. And so it's almost like that moment where it's like
Oh yeah,
passes through using like that liquid silver stuff, like
yeah,
metal, I guess.
definitely. You
That's
know,
what it makes me think of.
speaking of Fantastic Four, well, I do want to say two things before I forget, but two because I'm gonna forget them. Uh, so did you know we've seen me and you have watched Rick and Morty with Jose Talamantes? He showed it to us. Did you
Yeah.
know the writer of Rick and Morty wrote this movie?
No way.
So you know that's why there's so many weird stuff in it, and that's why there's a lot of subverting expectations. Because Rick and Morty subverted expectations all the time, and like doing something that you have expectations of a movie going a certain way, and then it does it
Yeah.
opposite. That's what, like for example, a lot of people didn't expect Wanda to just kill all of the Illuminati. That's
Yeah.
subverting expectations, and some
The
people,
fact that they called them Illuminati was kind of
yeah,
crazy.
that was weird. I was like, okay, but then it's in the comics, so I'm like, I don't know about that, uh, but yeah, people don't. Some people hate that. Some people hate when a movie subverts expectations, especially a mainstream movie, because audiences are used to things being cliched a certain way, the plot to go a certain way. They almost want it because they expect it so much.
Yeah.
And when
Oh
that
my
happens,
gosh.
they're like, get
Yeah,
mad.
it's pretty much what we've talked about in previous times of like movies, and like when we talked about Marvel, that people kind of expect something like in a song, they expect the chorus to come out, and then the verse to come out. And that's why people don't like jazz music, because it's like all over the place, and sometimes they go into a solo, and if you don't understand what they're doing, or like have played it yourself, then you kind of it's hard to follow, except like with a more regular mainstream movie where you're like, oh, the villain's gonna come out right now, and the superhero is gonna like
Yeah,
win.
Yeah,
And
that didn't happen. They didn't win. They all died.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
the second scene of Subverted Expectations was Wanda just turning good. Like I didn't expect that. I thought there's gonna be a big superhero battle scene and she was gonna lose. I didn't think there's gonna be this emotional moment where she sees her kids being afraid of her, and then decides, oh man, maybe I am a monster, and then she decides to just destroy the Darkhold. To me, that was Sam Raimi. That was like Doctor Octopus. It reminded me so much of Doctor Octopus at the end of Spider-Man 2, where he destroys the thing and it's falling on
yeah.
top of him. I was like, yep, that's Sam Raimi. Love
Oh, I
that.
didn't even
That's
get that.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
picked up on it.
true.
I was like, because Sam Raimi, if you know him, he loves to make villains that are sympathetic. He loves to have greater dimensionality to his villains. The Green Goblin, there was like a conflict with the Green Goblin. He was kind of good but kind of bad, and it was like wrestling. Doctor Octopus, same thing. He was just wanting money to make his project because he thought he was going to save the world. And
Yeah.
then Sandman, of course, a great example. Like he wasn't. He was just trying to get his daughter to not be sick. So he did the same thing with Wanda. I was like, that's awesome. That's Sam Raimi.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
didn't even think about that, but how the villain kills themselves, right? Almost.
yeah, she realizes she did wrong. And I feel like that's a scene that could be easily overlooked, or like in terms of how well done it is, how such a creative, anti-cliche, subverted expectation scene. It is anti-cliche because usually they have to do a big battle, and then, but it really wasn't that. If you think about it.
Yeah.
So,
So interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, very
So
interesting.
the only
And what did you think about that part where did
yeah,
you see that other Wanda in the other universe? She
yeah,
had powers as well, right?
yeah, she did.
That's what I was like figuring out. I was like, is she a normal human being, like an actual
Maybe
mother?
I don't know actually.
Yeah,
She
because when she goes up the stairs, she has like a ball of fire or something that comes
oh
out of
yeah,
her
she
hand.
probably was. Yeah, she had powers.
And I was like, wait, is this Wanda? Does she have powers as well? And that's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, oh man, that's crazy. Because I didn't think about that at first when she kept on coming into that house. I felt like that Wanda with the kids, the one that was actually the mother, I felt like she didn't have powers, right? She was just living her normal life,
Like
and
normal, yeah. But yeah, now that I think about it, I think you're right. I think she did have powers.
so that was interesting to me. Like I was like, oh whoa. At first I thought she was like completely normal and just like a normal human being.
Yeah, and
But
then you're like,
then like
oh,
she comes out with that ball of fire. Like I
yeah.
don't know. If I
So
was thinking like if she was maybe maybe because she did hadn't tapped into her like evil side
yeah,
that
yeah.
she wasn't able to
Well, and man, that frustrates me because so many people are making this dumb argument that Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four is being down by trying to calm down Wanda, and that they shouldn't have been. They should have known that they couldn't have taken her on. That they were stupid for trying to fight her. I'm like, yeah, but the argument that John Campea made on YouTube is that that version of Wanda didn't exist in their universe. They've never seen the Scarlet Witch before. They have no idea of what she's capable of because Scarlet Witch doesn't exist in their universe. So how could
yeah.
they have possibly known that she could have taken him out like that? And so I'm like, that's just a dumb argument. Come on, you're just trying to find ways to hate the movie, and I don't buy it at all. But the two other things I did want to bring up was the music really stood out to me because it was Danny Elfman, the same
Mm,
composer of the original Spider-Man trilogy, composed this movie.
wow.
And I definitely heard that with the violins and the orchestra. Like I definitely noticed that. And I thought to me it was more interesting music in terms of it was more iconic. It felt more like I said, I watched the Marvel Studios movies again and the music just you kind of forget about it. It's kind of just it's almost kind of bland. Not all of it. There's some good parts, but it doesn't really stand out as much. But this music in here really did. And
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing was, we were talking about the Fantastic Four. Hey, they're
Hey.
Fantastic Four. So
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that the fact I'm really curious to see if if they do come out with a new Fantastic Four movie, if they're gonna use the same actor.
yeah, a lot of people are wondering. That was a fan casting they did there. Jim from The Office.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you see The Quiet Place before?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, it's the director and actor in that movie was the same guy who played Reed Richards, the Fantastic Four guy in Doctor Strange.
Wow.
So, and he was also in The Office, a sitcom. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I thought. I mean, people were like saying his acting wasn't very good, but like I honestly, I didn't. I thought it was good. I don't know. I just don't have any complaints. I thought.
Yeah. He looked taller in than what I expected it to
I
be. Yeah, I was like, whoa, this guy's actually like much taller.
He probably got fit for the role too, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that's true.
but I thought it was a cool, design, and I thought it was for what we got. I was like, yeah, I think that'd be cool to see him in other movies. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I was curious. I really like that fork kind of guy.
Yeah, Black
It's
Bolt.
like, yeah, the black hole.
Yeah, dude, that reminds me. I love that part where Black Bolt had to kill the other doctors.
Black mole? Is that what's
Black Bolt, like a lightning bolt.
bold?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
I love that scene. It was so dark how they had to actually kill Doctor Strange in that other.
Oh,
That reminded
yeah.
me of something from a more adult superhero movie. Like I felt like that would be a scene, a plot point from an adult rated R superhero movie, like Watchmen, like Logan, or stuff like that. Like I didn't expect that kind of serious like decision because it's a really dark decision if you think about it. Like they're a team of superheroes killing another superhero. That's kind of heavy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Well, that turned into a super villain, right? At some point. And so, yeah, I guess it was really intense. Yeah. The fact that they had to take um that decision
yeah.
to kill that universe's Doctor Strange
And the way like
when he was the one that like pretty much saved the other universe, right? In
yeah.
with Infinity War. Like it wasn't like Doctor Strange the one that like played a big part
Yeah,
in
he did.
helping.
And I have to watch the movie again because I can't remember, but I think they were killing him because he was dream walking and they didn't agree with that.
Yeah, he was dream
But
walking and
wasn't he doing it for like a greater cause though, like a greater good of killing Thanos? Was that why? I can't remember.
yeah, it was like I think he was trying to figure out something. Um, I think he was trying to get back with the girl, right? He was trying to find a
Oh,
universe where he would get back with the girl.
yeah, maybe that was what it
He
was.
couldn't find it or something.
And just the subtle acting, like people maybe noticed it, maybe didn't, but like the way Patrick Stewart, Professor X was like during that scene when they were killing him, like his act, like you could tell he didn't want to. And then Black Bolt, like the guy who played Black Bolt, like after the flashback, like the look in his face and his eyes, he was like, you could tell that he regretted doing it. Like that was kind of deeper. And you don't usually expect that in like this kind of movie, that kind of,
Mm,
and it's subtle, it's short and it's subtle, but I think it speaks volumes to me. So
yeah.
it just adds depth. So,
Mm,
because usually superheroes, we think of them as like people who save the day, who always do good, who don't have to make hard choices, who don't have to kill people, who always find a better way to do it. But that was a really dark decision to have to like kill someone like that, like someone who's in it, someone who's like defenseless, not even fighting back. Like the more you think about it, the more you're like, wow, it's really
yeah.
dark actually.
When Doctor Strange could have like maybe stopped it or something,
Yeah,
stop time or something.
and the fact that he didn't, the fact that
Yeah,
he knew he had to do it. Yeah, I thought that was so cool.
it was, yeah,
That's
pretty
what reminded
intense.
me of those other superhero movies, the more adult ones.
Yeah. I still can't get over the fact that how how uh, how zombie like Wanda looked like. You know how she's walking and she's like
Yeah, yeah,
trying to get through and then like they keep dropping things and like closing things and she's just like
that was a cool.
doing whatever she can.
That was,
Yeah. It's almost like adrenaline kicks in and she's just like, trying to kill
yeah,
him and she looks like a zombie.
that
So crazy.
reminded me of The Shining. They actually said that they were kind of referencing The Shining at the end when Jack Torrance is running and limping and he's chasing the kid to try to kill him. It's like, yeah, that's like classic horror stuff right there. I thought that was so cool. Um,
Yeah.
so like, I also want to ask, like, the cinematography. Is there anything that stood out to you? Like,
I mean, I just noticed like some shots were really interesting. Just like it I mean, I don't want to say that they're like typical like horror shots, but it just like the way that, like, it's the camera moves slowly into the character, or like it zooms in into the feet when it screeches, or like different stuff like that, where you it adds almost like a foreshadowing of something that's about to happen, like really scary, or like something that's gonna pop out.
I
So
yeah, and
I did notice that, like the movements of the camera were very, very horror like. Yeah, it's just like
yeah,
you identify with a horror movie.
yeah, and I would say I would describe it as like energy. Like, it felt very energetic. The way the camera moved, how fast the camera moved, it was very
Mm.
kinetic. It had so much life.
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
So cool. It's so much more interesting. Like, I feel like a broken record. I keep saying, like, I watched the other Marvel movies, and this one just stands out like a sore thumb with the cinematography. It's so avant-garde. It's so cool. It's so much more interesting. Like, I'm so much more engaged because
Hmm.
the cinematography is actually trying to do something different. It's trying to go outside the box. And
Yeah.
I can't help, like I said, I've seen the Sam Raimi's other movies. I can't help but notice his style in the cinematography. Like, Sam Raimi
Mm.
likes to do a lot of Dutch angles. Well, not a lot, but he likes to sometimes do Dutch angles. He loves it. His most common stylistic thing is to have the camera move in really fast. Like, he does that in a lot of his movies. The Evil Dead movies, he always had the camera like moving in so fast and like to a character or through a doorway or through a forest. In the Spider-Man trilogy, he always had the camera moving really fast with Spider-Man, or just moving fast with the spider sense and then going like and then slow motion, or even just
Mm.
like the when Green Goblin died at the end of Spider-Man 1, he like panned the camera in like extremely fast towards him, and then it got still, and then fast editing, all that stuff. The editing too is very Sam Raimi. And I heard someone complain like, "Oh, well, the editing was trashy. The editing wasn't good." I'm like, I don't know, man. I can see how a general audience would think that, but to me, it was very artistic. It was very it was cool. I thought it worked. So um, yeah, like, that's what kind of stood out to me. And there were so many Evil Dead references in Doctor Strange. It was great. It blew my mind. Like, the eyeball being ripped out was the reference. The the pan in towards the doors, like the Dutch angle pan in towards the doors slamming shut, was a direct reference to Evil Dead because that almost exact same shot was in there. And just like of course, the zombie strange and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and
Yeah.
yeah,
It's cool because I mean, directors come in with all these things that they've done in the past, and so they almost like combine it. It's like it's a collaboration. That's what it is. I
yeah,
mean, you combine Marvel and, a director that's, horror movie, you know, kind of guy, and you get what you get, right? It's you just see those different things come into the movie, um because that's who he is. That's kind of the style and the things that he's he's done before. Not to say that he wasn't creative with his choices, but it's just like he's just taking things that have worked for him in the past to create certain effects
yeah. Yeah,
into
and
this movie.
that's what a lot of directors do, and I think that's what makes that is creative when you have your own unique style.
Exactly. Yeah, you create your own shot, like the movement of the shot, and it's like, oh, that's very this person or that person.
Yeah, like, Quentin Tarantino has a certain style. I recognize it when I watch his movies. Same thing with Christopher Nolan's style. It's You can tell you're watching their movie, and
Yeah.
that's why I love it. It's just, and a lot of people are going back and forth saying, looking at more of the negative things from this movie than the good. And I think I'm just getting so caught up myself on, like, it's important. like we talked about in the Marvel podcast, the Marvel movies one. We were talking about how we wish more Marvel movies and movies sometimes in general would go outside the box more. We wish there were more movies that tried to take creative risks, that tried to just be different, cinematography, sound, everything. Just so that's why I'm not saying it's a perfect movie. I'm not saying it's as good as Spider-Man 2, but do I think it's better than a lot of the Marvel movies that they usually make? I kind of, yeah. I mean, I kind of, at least, at the very least,
It's very different for sure.
the
Yeah,
style is better, I think.
yeah, the style that they really haven't experimented because I mean it's not known for its horror. Like Marvel movies are not like they're known for their horror movies. It's more like action story kind of plots, right? And
Yeah.
so um yeah, it was very like a different spin. I guess it adds to the repertoire of movies that they have, like, for kind of expanding to different places. It's almost like when a music artist is known for their country music and then they do rap and then they do, I don't know, some sort of like slow blues and then they transition into funk and then they transition into another genre and it but like maybe like opposite side. Now they're doing Latino music and so it's just like it adds to the repertoire of what they're capable of doing, right? So that it expands what Marvel can do, not just good superhero movies, but now like, oh, we can do like a really cool
Well,
horror
that,
slash
that
superhero movie.
well, and that's what I'm concerned about because there's been some negative reviews of this movie because of the creative risks that it's taken. Well, and because of the messy plot, which is reasonable, I get that. But my thing is like I want there to be more movies that take creative risks like this, and I don't want to discourage. I don't want. I don't want Sam Raimi. I don't want Disney. I don't want Marvel Studios or Kevin Feige or any of them to be discouraged from taking risks like this movie, creative risks, all the ones that they took in the future. I'm afraid that the negative reviews will push them back to their safe. Uh, I hate this. I mean, I'm not trying not to be too
I
critical,
get you, yeah. Their
but
safe place of like knowing
there's
like this is gonna be a blockbuster
well,
or
I
something.
was gonna say like factory made movie because
Mm,
in terms of in a sense that their movies all kind of feel the same before this movie. Not maybe not every single Marvel movie, but the vast majority of them do feel kind of the same. The way they're filmed, the music, even kind of like what happens sometimes.
yeah,
So
the plot, yeah.
yeah, I mean, so it does bother me when I just wish we could so, like encourage more creative risk taking. Like I get that it has problems. I get that, but it's like I don't want to discourage future directors from taking risks because I think it's a good thing. I think it's a step in the right direction, even
Mm,
if it's not perfect. If that
yeah,
so,
yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I do understand like, it seems like maybe potentially one of the first couple of attempts to do something different, right? Or try something different, or a continued attempt, because I mean Infinity War for me, like, it was just like mind blowing.
Yeah, it was.
Um,
Yeah,
but it continues to expand what Marvel is capable of doing, right? And even though it might not be perfect, I think it in its execution, it's like you said, it's still room for improvement, but shouldn't stop there. Shouldn't be like, oh, that was the first trial and that's it. We're not doing any more,
yeah. We're never gonna
right? But
try to do anything like that again because people hated it. We need to go back to the old formula. Like that's what I'm afraid is gonna happen. And it's such a shame because I want Sam Raimi to direct more movies. He hasn't directed movies in 9 years before this because he took a break after Spider-Man 3. Well, maybe not exactly after Spider-Man 3, but around that time maybe. And he's such a cool, unique director with such a cool style. I wish he made more movies, and I don't want I'm so afraid he's going to be discouraged by, bad, maybe not, but if I could see him make more Marvel movies, that would be awesome. But my final thoughts, I would say, is like, I don't want to like give out the impression like I don't hate the other Marvel movies. Like I rewatched them again, and just to give like a quick update, I I enjoyed them for what they were, and I did notice different directors' visions based on the directors that were directing. There were slight differences, and I recognized the positives of them. Like there are some good moments, and they are very good for entertainment. Um, could there be more character development and depth sometimes? Yes. Um, but yeah, like I don't necessarily really hate them. I mean, I just kind of they're their own thing, if that makes sense. They're their own genre almost. So like I kind of looked at it like that and just kind of enjoyed it for that, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I would be in the same boat. Like, it was very unexpected that it would change, but like you said, if you compartmentalize what you saw and you say like, wow, if they now that I know it's like a horror movie and I see it for it being more of a horror movie, then I can appreciate like more of the the events that happen.
Yeah,
But I think I'll probably appreciate it more when I see it a second time.
yeah, I saw it twice and I liked it more the second time. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking because since the first time you have like expectations from the previous movie, it kind of jumps a little bit from the previous one. And so that's why I was like a
yeah,
little bit kind of thrown off
true.
because like you said, we expected this,
And
but
I
yeah, I
would,
mean, that's what I would say. It's a good movie for it tried to do things that were outside of the norm, which is always pretty interesting, and to see what happens, you know, uh, all around. But like you said, businesses are businesses. They're in it for the business and not always for the creative aspect. And so they might go back into doing other movies that are not as creative or as experimental, but it doesn't take away from the fact that that experimental side of things always needs to be there in order to push the industry forward into new things that become norms later on in life.
yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, I think Marvel wants to be part of the avant-garde movement of movies, and so it's if it wants to be here for a long time, then it has to do that. It
Yeah,
has to do
prefer,
that every now and then.
change it up.
So
Definitely.
yeah, well, thank you guys for watching for today's podcast. We really appreciate you staying on till the end. Let us know what you thought about Doctor Strange. Did you like it? Did you not? Did you think some of our comments were interesting? Please let us know down below in the comment section, and also always feel free to subscribe to our channel because we are constantly putting up new videos every week, and so we're really committed to providing you amazing content. And so please stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.